some ideas of how you can reconsider your business model for the future. But before we start, I just wanted to get from, is the poll over, Karen? It looks like, right? It's done. Okay. So I see that, yeah, only 27% are doing 13-week cash flow forecast. So I hope that you're gonna find this presentation informational, and maybe even the people that are doing it, maybe you'll get some pointers. Okay, so the next slide, we'll just go straight into this. Okay, here it is. So I think the first thing we want to do is to review your current situation. And then we recommend that you assess your company's current financial health. And what do we mean by that? That's when we talk about doing a 13-week cash flow forecast. And when we talk about the category expense analytics, that is what you're going to utilize to prepare your 13-week cash flow forecast. We also need to look at your current loans and look at, do you have access to any other new funding? And also review in detail your accounts receivable and your accounts payables. Okay, I think in today's environment, we hear from everybody, or every restructuring professionals, they talk about cash is king. And that really is why 13-week cash flow is so important. When you look at lenders and private equity, or anybody who is going to give you money, they usually require 13-week cash flow forecast. The other benefit of doing a 13-week cash flow forecast, it looks into the future. It's not that far into the future, so you should be able to pretty accurately predict how it's going to look like. And it's going to, but at the same time, it's going to allow you sufficient time to make changes, to take actions if you see that there are things you need to change. There's one caveat today, because we are faced with more uncertainty now than we have ever had. And we all know why, because of COVID-19. And that's why today, when we look at your 13-week cash flow forecast, you really need to also, you need to do a scenario planning. You need to look at what you think is the most likely case, but then look at best case and a worst case. And also when we talk about 13-week cash flow forecasts, we do, when you look at it and you have it on one piece of paper, it's really easy for you to see trends. Okay, next. And like I talked about, and now I'm gonna tell you, so how do you do it? I mean, the first thing you need to do is to understand your sources and uses of cash. And I like to explain to people that it's almost like your own personal budgeting when you start. I mean, what's your income? And then you look at what's your expenses, what's your house, and what's your other living expenses. It's like salaries, mortgage, rent, utility, loan. But this really is going to be unique to your business or the industry you are in, what kind of expenses your business has. And then you look at, from there, you can identify your biggest expense categories, and you can start figuring out, where can I potentially save? And I think what we see in the news today, we hear that retailers, restaurants, they're not paying the rent. The other thing is companies are furloughing employees. And just recently, last week, we heard that both JCPenney and Neiman Marcus, they deferred their April 15th interest payment. So you can see what companies out there are doing to survive and improve their liquidity. The other thing we need to look at is your accounts receivable and payables. See, is there anybody you can collect money from quicker? And you can at least see if you have some people that really are stretching out and they're not paying you, you might think about potentially selling some of your receivable to get the cash in. The other thing is you look at your payables. Is there a chance that you can defer some of your payments? And we are seeing this at RGP. We are getting phone calls from some of our clients, and they are requesting to get their terms revised. And I think a lot of businesses are seeing this, that companies are doing anything they can to improve their liquidity. So right now, I wanna look at some examples, and I'm gonna show you, we're gonna have two examples. One is gonna show you, and this is kind of, you do your cash flow, first time you put everything in when it's due. So this is kind of, see the picture, this is the real picture, if you were able to pay everybody on time. Then the second version we are gonna show you is where we have taken measures to boost the liquidity and how the cash flow can then look different. So here, the first thing I'm gonna do is just to explain to you the format. So you start with your beginning cash, then you start looking at what's my inflow for your business, what kind of money are you expecting to get in, then you look at your disbursements, and this is going to come from your category expense analysis, because now you know what's the most expense, where do I spend my money. The other thing is, just so you look at here, I have 13 weeks and I give you an arrow to the right. We only included 4 weeks just for illustration purposes. It's because if I had put in 13 weeks, this would be way too small and you wouldn't be able to see any of the numbers. So just the first thing you see when you look at this, you see we are in trouble here. We are negative 127,000, we are negative 193,000. So as a business owner or whoever is managing this company, you see we have to do something. So I've identified here potential 3 categories where you could make changes, and I highlighted these in blue. So you could see that I'm talking about if I was in this company's shoes, I would start immediately thinking, okay, I need to figure out how to defer these merchandise payments. So I've identified 150,000 that I'm not planning to pay. The other thing is here 50,000 for rent, and there's 75,000 for interest and principal payments. So now I want to show you what happens to the cash flow. You can see here that I took out the merchandise payment, I took out the rent, I took out the 75,000. So you can see here that if we go back to this slide, you saw the 127 negative, 193 negative, you go back here, you can see these numbers change to a positive number. So now at least if I take these actions, I'm going to survive for 4 weeks. But of course, you have to look further into the future. But of course, I just want to let you know that we are recommending, of course, that you stay in contact with your vendors, try to negotiate, tell them that you're going to see if they will revise your terms, talk to your landlords, and then and your bank, your lender. We want to try to be as transparent as we can, because that makes it more likely that people are going to work with you. So when we talk, next thing we wanted to talk about, how can you boost your liquidity? The first one we had, negotiate with your lenders. We have seen a lot of companies, and it's in the news, that a lot of the retailers have been drawing down everything they had available on the revolvers to increase liquidity. And companies like I talked about, JCPenney, and Neiman Marcus deferring principal and interest payments. The next thing you look at, we should really look at what is available to us from the Small Business Administration. The most popular one that everybody's talking about is the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. The initial funding for this program was $349 billion. But these funds were exhausted within 13 days or by April 16th. But the good news is that the government just increased the funding to this program yesterday or Thursday, and is around another 300 billion. So hopefully the people, if that haven't gotten funded under PPP, have an opportunity now to get funding. We really want to do now our second polling, and we want to look at, out of the participants, how many people did actually apply for a PPP loan, and then from the people that did apply, how many have already received funding. So Karen, I see you have already put up that. So the next one, and I'm just, while everybody fills this out, I'm just going to continue talking down the slide. The next one that is less talked about is the SBA subsidy. And what this is a program that pays the SB loan payments for 6 months if you had a pre-existing SBA loan. So this is in effect a grant. It doesn't have to be repaid. And this should be an automatic relief. You should not have to apply for this. And then the third one is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL. And so what we recommend, if you have questions about any of these programs, is to go through your lender and see what you can do. But I think right now we really want to go back to the polling. Oh my, so nobody has gotten funding. Wow. Okay, so we really, now it's good that they extended the funding. So hopefully, and they have talked about that. It's on a first come, first served basis. So if for the people that have already applied, hopefully there is going to be funding that you're going to be able to get it. And even the 44% that haven't applied yet, it's still worth it to try because there is additional funding. Okay, so I'm just going to go out here. Okay, so then we talk about the deferral and the stretch term with vendors, and we've already talked about this. And then the last thing to consider is the operating measures. And what we mean with that is like furloughing employees, reducing their schedule, reducing potentially capital expenditure. Okay, I came across a quote from John F. Kennedy that I really like. And this says that in Chinese, crisis has two characters. It has a danger and opportunity. And this makes me think of that there are things that you can do today to improve your business model for the future. So this is the last slide that I have, and I just want to talk about how important it is to utilize this time to rethink about your business model. Are there other opportunities for you? Are there changes you can make? For example, and a lot of people are already doing this, offering curbside pickups, offering gift cards for future use. And then looking at, is there opportunities for you to change your business model going forward? I think that it is going to take time for people to start socializing again. So even if everything opened up in 2 weeks, it's still going to take time for business to become as business as usual. And it may even never really recover totally. Like a lot of people think that retail, brick and mortar is going to go down and we are going to move a lot more into e-commerce. And one of the things I really want to talk about with this group especially, I think most of you are business owners, you are entrepreneurs, and they're usually creative people and they're willing to take risk. So I think that this is the opportunity to look at your business, really try to monetize on what's unique to your business. Okay, so this is the end of my prepared presentation, and Cindy, I'm turning it back to you.
Great, thank you. So thank you, Thora. That was so enlightening, and I think that there are there are some business owners that are newer business owners, and there are other business owners who may have been through a number of crises before. So I think it's a good refresher for those who have done this before, and it's a good overview for those who are new at this. So if you have any questions about cash flow forecasting, Thora's email address and phone number are at the bottom of your current screen. Thank you, Thora. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, I will go ahead and introduce George. So George Bejarano is a manager at the La Casita Mexicana restaurant in Bell, California, and he's agreed to spend some time with us this morning to share with us their restaurant's plan during this crisis period and what they've had to do to adjust and to think creatively and to figure out ways to survive. So thank you, George, for joining us.
Good morning, thank you. My name is George. I am the manager of the restaurant La Casita Mexicana, which was opened in 1999 by the chefs Jaime Martin del Campo and Ramiro Arvizu. And when they first opened the restaurant, they wanted to bring the food and the dishes that they actually ate at their grandmother's house. So this was quite successful for them. It attracted a lot of the foodies and a lot of the major foundations like the James Beard Foundation, the Jonathan Gold. And so they were quite successful before the COVID-19. Unfortunately, this affected the restaurant dramatically, in which we had to make drastic changes. Just once the authorities and the health department did not allow us to have the guests come and sit down, we definitely had to prepare in a matter of one day to another a strategy to be able to survive. Unfortunately, many restaurants are closing completely, and we had to sit down and think of what's the best way to do that. One of the first immediate things we had to do was definitely reduce the labor cost. We obviously do not need servers. We do not need that many cooks. We only had one cook, one dishwasher, and myself was there the whole day, just because we were allowed to do only to-go orders. The other thing we did is we got in contact with our vendors, letting them know, due to the situation, we are unable to pay you this current balance. But as soon as we're able to work and have the guests in and be able to get more of the revenue as we used to have, we'll definitely get back on track and be able to pay up that balance, just to make sure that we keep a good relationship with them. And most of them were very understandable of the situation because they're all going through the same thing. And so that was the first thing we had to do. We also had to reduce our menu because I only have one cook and it's impossible for them to prepare the very elaborate dishes that we usually offer. Then it was more of the serving and packing the food so that way our guests could just go ahead and take that to go. So we definitely had to make those changes immediately to be able to survive. Otherwise, the very minimum orders that we would get were not going to be enough to pay our employees and cover a lot of the expenses that we had.
Great, so thanks, George. I'm going to stop you for a second and have Thora unshare her screen so that we can see your handsome face there. Great, thanks, George.
Thank you.
So I know during the polling, there were a lot of people who had applied for PPP and didn't get it yet. Did you find that a tough process, or Jaime and Ramiro?
Yes, well, what we did is we did actually go through the SBA.com website first, but what we also did, we went to our local bank, which is the bank that we currently have, and to ask them what are their options. And they did give us a good PPP option, and they were able to give us a good unforgivable amount. Usually it's more of the payroll, so that way it would help us quite a bit with all this situation. So that's what we went for. We did already apply for it. We haven't received, but it should be coming in hopefully soon to be able to cover all of that and be able to help our employees as well. So what we did, we were very concerned about our employees as well in this situation. So we did end up, a lot of the products such as vegetables, tortillas, cheese, a lot of those items that we had in the restaurant and stored, we created bags for them, just so that way they would be able to, provide for their families or wouldn't have to spend their small savings on food. And we're also asking them if in case that they need rice, beans, or whatever items that we can provide them, they can definitely come to the restaurant and be able to help them as much as we can with that as well.
Great. That's wonderful. I've heard of so many stores and businesses that are helping out their employees. Like, for example, my gym has created a fund for the members to donate to their employees who now no longer have a full-time schedule. So I think it's wonderful that businesses are doing that for their employees during this time. What are some business strategies that La Casita is exploring to get through this crisis?
We are actually using a lot of the social media, the internet, since due to the lockdown, we understand that most of the guests are actually at home and not so much out. And a lot of people are using their phones, their computers, the internet, just to kind of distract themselves. So we are using the Facebook, Instagram. The owners and the chefs are actually able to do videos for the recipes. And what they do is they are selling small packages of the items that they're going to need for the guests to do the recipes with them at home. They are also selling, we have a salsa book that you can actually buy digitally for a very small price. They're selling hats, they're selling t-shirts. They're doing, just different ideas to be able to get some sort of revenue into the restaurant as well. We obviously have the to-go orders. Within the last couple of weeks, we decided to use this time to clean the restaurant and do some renovations. And we also have some of the employees come and get some hours in by cleaning and helping us with the renovations, because a lot of them are very concerned about their jobs and about the money, and whatever you guys need, I'm willing to work, just because the demand of jobs are quite high at the moment. The unemployment is very high at the moment as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's a great creative way to leverage your employees and give them some hours.
Right, and we're also we're thinking of the upcoming celebrations like Mother's Day that is coming up in May. So we are actually creating bigger packages so that way the customers can just come in and take it to go. I know that was one of our biggest celebrations, a very busy date at the restaurant, and unfortunately, we are giving them the opportunity to also take some of the food and celebrate with their families at home by doing that. And so we are doing mostly to go. This starting May the 1st, we will be able to provide them with the to-go orders, and we're going to be changing the menu as well, just to simplify it as well.
Oh, good. Maybe something for Cinco de Mayo as well.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Great, great. So what do you think is one of the biggest things that you and Jaime and Ramiro have learned through this whole crisis?
I don't think none of us were expecting, nobody actually thought that this would actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely we have to be able to manage, the expenses that we have. One of the things that we learned, it's sometimes just the inventory, just, having so much product in inventory that actually help us to, maybe in the future be able to arrange or, make it differently. The labor cost as well, we were thinking, perhaps we might not need so many employees. We can actually, change the strategies of that as well, just because the labor cost is usually one of the major expenses at a company. So we're able to look at all the items that we have in inventory and be able to, in the future, help us reduce and just have the minimum expenses as opposed to having so much in store. So that was one of the big lessons that we have during this time as well.
Okay, great, great. So we have a few minutes left. I'd love for you to share anything else that you would like our listeners to hear about, something, maybe words of inspiration to help them get through this period of time.
Right, yeah, well, we definitely do know that they're very, very tough times for everyone, not just for the food and beverage industry. I mean, a lot of them are very concerned and uncertain if their business that they've worked so hard for would be able to reopen. And, just to keep in mind that, there's always hope to be able to survive. There's always ways that you can go and get some help, either through your banks or online. Do not give up, just because I know that there's a way that you can actually reestablish your business. As Thora mentioned in the beginning, it might not be as strong as it used to be, but just keep in mind just to have the minimum expenses and labor costs. I'm sure, slowly but surely we'll be able to reestablish and through these times you can actually reinvent your business and yourself with better ideas, different ideas that can help your business grow, definitely.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so, so much. Thanks,
Thank
George,
you.
for your time. And we wish you and Ramiro and Jaime and your staff all the best during this time, and we hope you get your funding.
Yes.
And good luck with all of your holiday family packs.
Yes, and if they follow us on Instagram or Facebook is La Casita Mexicana, or Instagram is Casita Mex. They can follow us there, and then they're usually uploading videos, they're doing the recipes, they're doing a lot of fun stuff that they can, enjoy as well while they're home.
Okay, great. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you, and best wishes to everyone as well. And I'm sure everything will be much better in in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. So inspirational. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We will definitely follow La Casita on Facebook and Instagram and support you however we can.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I'll pass it back to Karen for a Q&A session and sharing, maybe there's some of you out there who yourselves are small business owners and would like to share anything that's going on with you. So I'll pass it back over to Karen. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Thora. Thank you, George. Thank you, Cindy. So insightful, so much information. I know that this was, helpful for me just to hear this different perspective as a, aspiring entrepreneur. These are things that we're gonna all have to be thinking about, and we're all trying to navigate this time of uncertainty together. So I'm really thankful for, having the support and also the network that we have where we're able to have this content and the information and share this with our greater community. So thank you all so very, very much. And I think we already have a couple questions actually. And I want to go ahead and open this up to everyone else. So you have the option, if you have a question, you can put that in the chat. If you're feeling bold and you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, there's a little raise your hand I think it's where you have participants. You have the option to raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and see that, and then I can say, okay, if, Karen has a question, you can go ahead and unmute yourself now and share your question. Just remember to put yourself back on mute in case we have any type of feedback. So you have the option to do so, or you can just type your question in the chat and I'll go ahead and read that out to the speakers for you. So those are your options. So we do have a question coming from Vin. Vin said, you mentioned, where'd it go? You mentioned that suppliers were able to extend collections. What was the trade's payable dates? And what about rent? Did you have cash reserve for how many months? And this was for George. Okay, so George, this question was for you. You mentioned that suppliers were able to extend collections. What was the trade payable dates? And then what about rent? And did you have cash reserve, and for how many months?
Yeah, when I actually got in contact with most of my vendors and providers, they did give us about 60 to 90 days. Most of the companies were actually closed as well, so they understood. But most of them were a 60-day extended period, hoping that within this period we would be able to reopen and give them at least partial payment. There were no penalties that they mentioned about that. Also, the renter that we have, we did let them know, we sent a letter as well explaining the situation, and we obviously would pay them. That would be one of our priorities. As soon as we would get some funding, we would go ahead and pay them as well. We're focusing on that as well as of our employees. If we get any help, we'll definitely give them some compensation for the time being. And also for the utilities, we did what I forgot to mention is we completely, for any that had the auto payment, we definitely had to remove the auto payment. Otherwise, we did have a reserve of cash, but if we wouldn't do that, it would definitely finish all the money that we had by the gas and the electricity that would usually do automatic payments. So we called them and they did also extend it to a 60-day period where they wouldn't charge us or disconnect electricity or gas due to the situation.
Thank you so much for that. So thorough. Did that answer your question, Ben? You can go ahead and, if you want to ask a follow-up, go ahead. Okay, we got a thumbs up. Yay. Yeah, so if y'all want to go ahead and share any questions, don't see any hands up for anyone who's being bold and wants to speak. So I will continue speaking and you will hear my voice. So we have
I'd like to ask something, Karen.
Go ahead.
So, and also Francis, feel free to chime in, or Mei Chan. I know AAPA we're a nonprofit and we've had to change dramatically our own program. So I'd love to have Karen or Francis, have one of you share a little bit about how we had to change as well during this time, and kind of the pros and cons about it, because I definitely see already some benefits of the change, and I'll share that afterwards.
Okay, so I go ahead. Yeah, hey, Cindy, so happy to see you here. And what you're looking at is something that we're trying new. That our mentorship program and board leadership program, our programming primarily is face-to-face. We obviously treasure the people connection, but now we are under the circumstances that are out of our control, and we quickly switch over. And this is one of the products that we roll out, so people can still get a benefit from people like George and Thora and yourself sharing your experience, but do it over the internet. And we're going to do more.
Great. Well, for those of you who don't know, Francis is the president of AAPA, and I know he and our staff and our board have been working very hard to figure out how to continue providing our services to our mentee group. And I had mentioned that one of the benefits that I'm starting to see already is with Zoom, we're no longer geographically contained, right? One of our business goals was to try to figure out how to expand our program to other areas. And I know one of my colleagues, Tim, is dialing in from Texas right now. So hi, Tim, and thanks for supporting us. I think that shows that one of the benefits of, thinking about how to reinvigorate or how to refresh your business model sometimes can turn, like Thora said, into opportunities that we may not have thought about before.
Mm-hmm. Right, so true. This has definitely been an experience, and I think it's been a great one. There's a lot of dark things going on right now, especially with the pandemic, but there are a lot of silver linings and a lot of creative and innovative ways that we as a community are coming together to support.
Here, this is a.
Yeah, did we have a question?
Yeah.
I actually think, Francis, you mentioned a good question. How and who can help us put together a cash flow analysis? So I think, Thora, can you share some insight with how folks can approach this?
Yes, so you can either ask if you have your accountant or a restructuring consulting firm. We have almost all of our clients that have some liquidity issues. When we are brought in, cash flow is the first thing we do.
Thora, what's the significance of the 13 weeks? Like, why not 5 or 6 weeks or 10 weeks?
That's just, I think it is because you're looking at 1/4 of your business, but I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never heard a bank ask for 10 weeks or 8 weeks. They always ask for 13 weeks.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty standard.
It's standard, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Thora, I have a follow-up question. So after you have done the cash flow, and unfortunately, I'm unable to change the red color into green, I'm still in trouble, out of cash. What are the options? I mean, you did mention some of the loans, but at the end, if I consider that maybe my business is not viable anymore somehow, what are some of the things that we should consider?
I mean, if you look at a business and if it's non-viable, if there's nothing you can do to turn it around, I would think then you would try to liquidate or just try to sell whatever assets you have to try to recover as much as you can. If sometimes I mean, when you have bigger corporations, their issue is that sometimes they're over leveraged and they cannot, their operations, you may be able to fix the operational part, but they just cannot service the debt. So in those cases, sometimes bankruptcy is the only option to recover. And that's what I think is going to happen to a lot of the bigger retailers, that they are going to go the bankruptcy route.
Thank you.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Vin.
sorry, I have a question for Thora. Thora, based on your experience and what you're seeing now, what is the new base case? Because I know there's companies are running different stress scenarios of whatever the cash flow is. So what is the new base case? And if you had to stress that further, what would be the new stress case, given we are probably another 30 to 60 days from kind of reopening the economy?
It's difficult to tell. I mean, are you asking how long you could survive, or how long your bank is going to allow you to be negative or give you extended, allow you to be in a default? Is that what?
Well, I think there's a lot of banks that are out there that's giving either forbearance or extension. So where I'm going at is with my cash flow analysis, I've got my 90-day or 1 quarter analysis, but that analysis is now no good because of what's going on. So I need to stress my analysis. And if I'm stressing my analysis, I'm stressing it by 70%, 50%, 25%. So I'm going to take it the downside to it, right? My stress analysis. So if I'm stressing it today, my O analysis, say I used to have $10. Now I'm stressing it to $5. What is the new base case now if we will kind of present this to banks? And even with a base case, I still have to further stress that for a downside. And what is the new downside based on your experience through this?
I think it depends on what industry you are, I mean, what your business is. I mean, I think, you know, your worst case is what is today. I think like businesses that are totally closed and they don't have any revenue, that's your worst case, that you continue. Is it 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? What's going to happen to your business if you don't get any revenue in, and what can you pay? So it depends. I mean, I can't give you just a fixed answer. It depends on what company, what do you have today. And that's why we stress the importance of doing your health assessment today. Where are you today? And then looking at, and where we talked about do a worst case, best case. So your worst case, if you're in a dire strait today, your worst case is probably, it's going to continue the same way. So it depends. I mean, it's difficult to say. We'll have to look at your cash flow to be able to give you a better advice in that sense.
Thank you for that, Thora. So detailed. We do have a couple questions popping in on the chat. I want to make sure that we spend the next couple minutes to do so. Let's see. We have someone who asks, when we do reopen, is it mandatory to rehire employees that were laid off previously? I think that's just a general open. I'm assuming maybe Thora or George, if you want to put some insight on that with maybe George.
Yeah, a lot of my employees are very concerned just because it's been like about a month and a half almost that we had to close the restaurant, especially servers who would depend a lot on their tips and are asking me, you know, they're actually applying for their jobs, but they're unable to get a job just because the demand for jobs are so high now. So I do let them know that we will be rehiring them. They're not being completely terminated. Obviously the hours are gonna be a lot less, and we would be rotating the hours with them. That's the best that we could do, because as Thora mentioned, as we reopen, a lot of the guests are still gonna be scared to be able to have a sit down at the restaurant. We might have to change the strategies of how many guests we can actually have in the restaurant. It might be like 50% less of what we used to have in the past. So we are letting them know that it might not be the 30, 40 hours that they were having, but perhaps 20, 25. But you know, they'll definitely have the doors open for them once we reopened. Yes.
Thank you for that, George. Thora, did you have anything to add?
Is the question related to whether you get the PPP forgiven? I mean, there is a calculation of how, if you don't have the same number of employees as of, I think the date is June 30th as you had before, and based on what your loan was, because your loan is calculated based on your average monthly revenue, I mean, payroll. So that's why in order to get forgiven a portion, you have to kind of make sure that you rehire the employees by June 30th. Yeah, I'm assuming that that's why you were asking if you had to rehire the employees.
Thank you, Thora, for that. I have two more questions, and then Carrie, I see your hand up, so I'll get to you after we get to Tim's questions. So Tim, you asked, there's a sizable professional Asian population here in Texas. How do we get more involved as well as other large professional Asian populations in other cities? I think, Cindy, you mentioned that we can definitely talk about opening up a chapter out there. And as we mentioned earlier, we are not constrained to our demographics anymore, and we have gone virtual. We have essentially launched all three of our programs to be accessible through Zoom. So this is all brand new for us as AAPA and this organization. And I believe we're doing very well with adapting with what's going on. And that has opened up the channels to be everywhere. So we can definitely talk about bringing more of our community in, having all this content accessible for populations everywhere. And, you know, we're doing these idea talks until the end of May. So we are asking y'all to provide us with what you want to hear and what you want to see. And we are essentially catering all of our talks to provide you with what you want. So I'm going to share some resources at the end so you can keep staying connected with us, and also our next upcoming virtual idea talks with our mentorship program, board leadership program, and our Toastmasters. So I'll go ahead and share that at the end. So thank you for that question, Kim. And then you also had a follow-up question. With Thora, would you recommend small businesses take an additional debt to float operations until recovery, or would that be too risky, especially if we don't get any stimulus or PPP money?
I think one of the things when if you're just getting loan, just to, if you're not getting any revenue, and if this is just going to be such a burden for you at the end, it is risky. And when I think about, for example, retailers that currently are not paying their rent, and if you look at 1, 2, 3 months, say if they don't pay the rent for 3 months, and a lot of retailers are struggling, we're already struggling before. And then my view is, how are they going to be able to pay back that rent plus going forward expenses? And I think this is going to be very tough for landlords, because it's not like they have a lot of other options to get somebody else to take over the space. So I think it's going to be very interesting what happens to retail and those negotiations, because lenders are saying you have to still pay. And some of the retailers are saying we have contracts where you have to be open. And the malls, they're closing the malls. And so the stores there are saying, you're not even making it possible for us to occupy our space. So I think it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen there.
Thank you for that insight, Thora. So we have 2 more questions, and then we're going to be pressed for time. So I want to make sure we get to everyone's questions. So Francis had one for George. After you have pivoted your business to serve to-go meals with your lower expenses, are you making a profit now?
Right. This is the reason once we reduce the menu, we actually reduce the cost of our also the items that we're using, but that's a big percentage of that as well. The to-go-ers, there is profit. We didn't want to close the doors entirely just because some of the guests that we had, we don't want them to think that we're permanently closed. That's the reason why we're trying to still be active through social media or doing the to-go orders. Obviously the profit, it's not the same as what we used to have. And this is the reason why the first thing we had to attack was the labor cost. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to survive. I couldn't have everybody we would love to have everybody working and providing them with jobs, but we had to do just one cook, one dishwasher, and myself. I had to put me as a host, as the answering the phones, just the entire day. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to survive, and that's just the only way that we're able to get through these harsh times.
Thank you so much for that behind the scenes insight. You know, yourself and a lot of small business folks are having to put on multiple hats, right?
Right.
Having to manage everything. So thank you for that. I want to go ahead and move on. Carrie had a question, hand raised, and then also something in the chat. The LA City Council just passed ordinance for hospitality and other industries. Carrie, if you're available to share, if you want to unmute.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I just want to, I think the issue came up, the question came up about hiring back employees. So LA City Council just approved this week an ordinance that required, I don't have a list of all the industries, but most of them are hospitality industries, janitorial, to make sure that they are hiring the employees that they lay off first. So I don't know if this is going to be a wave that will be happening in other cities, but just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Very important. Yeah, there's just so much information coming out, right? It's so hard for us to keep on top of all this information because, I mean, things are changing on the hour, every hour, it seems like right now. So thank you very much for sharing that information. And then lastly, we'll close up the Q&A with Lillian. Lillian, if you're available to unmute, go ahead and share your question.
Hi, thanks, Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, George, for sharing your story. I just have a follow-up question regarding what you share, how you're planning to start bringing back your employees on a part-time basis. So curiosity is, with the consideration that we'll all have to adjust to a new normal, if you will, physical distancing, a cleaning process, and especially in industries like hospitality, as I can imagine, with food safety on top of that, how are you planning for the reopening of the restaurant site once the order is lifted, as far as how you're going to maybe flow in the customers and seating, spacing, etc.?
Right. We are actually awaiting there's going to be new regulations from the health department that they're going to let us know how we're going to be able to operate. It's going to be completely different from before. So which most likely we would have to have a distance of guests that are sitting down. We're obviously also going to reduce the menu just because once we're reopened, I might have just a few cooks as well. And instead of having the entire menu or all the options that we had, which required for me to buy a lot of product and a lot of items, and we'll definitely have to do that. And we're gonna, as we reopen, we're gonna start seeing how things flow. But to start, our plan is obviously not to have the entire staff, because we do understand that that's not gonna happen. It's gonna take some time for people to readjust and to reassure themselves that it's okay that it's safe for them to come into a restaurant where there's more than 30, 40 guests. But we'll definitely have to wait for health department, because they let us know that they're going to be changing some other regulations as well, and sanitation and the way that we use chemicals to clean, just to sanitize the tables, the chairs. Then definitely we'll have to wait on that. But yeah, for sure, we're hoping that things start getting much better sooner than later. But to start, our plan is just to have the minimum staff, and then as well as we start seeing how things flow, then we'll be able to bring in more staff into the restaurant.
Yeah, thank you so much. We definitely have to wait for, what the public health, everyone has to say, especially the government, for these restrictions and regulations. This, changes everything, right? There's definitely going to be a new normal after this. And folks aren't, as someone mentioned earlier, we're not going to be comfortable, even if the order's lifted on May 15th. I know I won't. I'll definitely second guess going to the grocery store, right? What I'm touching everywhere I go, the doorknobs, right? Your car, hugging for the huggers out there and the extroverts. It's like, this changes everything, right? I got, some extroverts in the room, I know. So yeah, this is definitely very, very helpful on multiple levels. Even if you're not a small business owner or entrepreneur, like just hearing the insight that we got today is just, it really puts a lot of things in perspective, especially for, the folks that are here. So I really appreciate y'all joining us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. I mentioned that we're going to share some resources, but I definitely want to thank everyone for joining us, the speakers today. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Thora. Thank you, George. I know it's just super helpful to have y'all in our network, our AAPA network, our AAPA family. So thank you so very much for sharing all of your insights today. I will go ahead and share with y'all some of our resources. And if y'all, I'm gonna pop this in the chat. There is a feedback form that you can help us with. Like I mentioned earlier, we are catering our content for you. We are essentially doing this because we are trying to answer the call, for y'all, so if y'all can, help us with this feedback form, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. All you have to do is copy and paste that little hyperlink that I just put in the box and fill that out. Take the next couple minutes, fill that out for us. It'll really, really help us out. The only reason we launched these AAPA virtual idea talks, I mean, they were in the works before. We definitely wanted to go virtual, but because of the pandemic and what's going on, that really, catapulted us to do this within a couple days. So it'll really help us help you if you tell us what you need. So please help us fill that out. And then you can stay connected with us through our website. We are on social media as well, through Instagram and Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. And then our next idea talk is going to be next Saturday. So we're going to have idea talks every Saturday until May. So keep plugged in with us. You can register and then add that to your Google Calendar. But I also want to show you where you can find most of our information. And if you've been keeping up with the chat box, I have Thora's email in there as well. And then we have George's information for the restaurant in there as well. And I believe you have an option to copy and paste what's been put in the chat box. So just copy and paste that or do a screenshot of the screen right now. But I want to go ahead and show you where you can find this information on our website. We've created and updated our website, and it's amazing all the information that we have on here. And I know most folks are doing this too, but what's special about ours is that we've actually gone through the painstaking sifting and sorting of the information, so you don't have to. So this is our website here, and if you click on the COVID resource page, we've created a place for you to go access our virtual idea talk. So this is what I was talking about for Tim's previous question, how you can stay involved and how we can make sure other community members are also tapping in and have access to this information. Route them here and sign up for our virtual idea talks going on every Saturday for the next month and a half. And then, like I said, our mentorship program is coming up in May. We've extended the registration until May 30th. And we've extremely lowered the cost. So it's only $95 for our mentorship program, used to be $500. And we did that because we realized that folks have been hit financially, especially with what's going on. And we want to make sure that we are providing the content to you at an accessible price, especially with what's going on right now. So we want to make sure that we're here for you, but that we also have the content to provide to you. So you can do so. Everything is on our website. Board Leadership Program has also been extended. And so you can apply for that. The deadline is now May 10th. So that is a 6-month program where we train you to be board members on a nonprofit board. But I also wanted to show you this job listing. So we've sorted through from our AAPA network, jobs that are available through our mentors. So if there's something on here that resonates with you and you're like, oh, I really wanted to get into Google. Hey, we have an AAPA mentor that works at Google. So you can utilize our network to get your foot in the door to your dream job, essentially. And what we're doing is we're trying to make sure you have a network to tap into here. So you can go to our website, check that out. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I hope you, let me make sure I gave you our information into the chat box so you can copy and paste that as well. And I have utilized all of our time today. Isn't that amazing, y'all? So I hope everyone had an amazing time as much as we did today. There's our information that you can copy and paste. I did take a couple more minutes than I anticipated to, but I really, really appreciate y'all sticking with me. And I really appreciate you all showing up and being present. You know, give yourselves like a pat on the back for that. You know, it's Saturday. Wow. And it's a beautiful day. Wow. And you us and you chose to spend it with us. Wow. You know, that makes us feel so great. And please reach out to us. We are here for you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. So with that, we are going to be signing off. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you very
George.
much.
Thank you, Dora.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Blessings and good luck to everyone.
Yes, you too.
Good luck to you as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up some of those recipes that you were saying for the
Yes, yes, you have to go to the, if you're near the restaurant, you know, we'll be more than glad to have you there once we reopen and give you a little tour of the different flavors that we have.
Amazing.
Right.
It'll be a pleasure.
So looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
help as
Thank
well.
you, George. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Lillian. Thank you, Jenny. See you all. Have a good one. Y'all are welcome to sign off. I'm just going to be the last person here.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.